Hi everyone. If you like our stories, please consider liking and subscribing. We would also greatly appreciate if you tell us in the comments from which country you are listening. Okay, let's begin. I should have known better than to take that shortcut. We were halfway through Arizona, sweating under a blistering sun, in a car, with a rattling AC and a tank, just shy of a quarter full. It was my idea, of course. This road trip, just the two of us, one last stretch of freedom, before life got serious. Before the fertility appointments, the looming mortgage, the talk about switching jobs or staying put. Maya had that tired look behind her smile. Not because she didn't want to be there, but because we hadn't really been present with each other for months. We were together, yes, but we'd been drifting, arguing over dumb things, rescheduling dinner plans, canceling dates, pretending that the silence was comfort when it was mostly distance. This trip was supposed to fix that. The plan was simple. Drive from Santa Fe to Los Angeles over 4 days, stopping at old diners, roadside motels, taking bad selfies with fake dinosaurs and hand-painted gas station signs. No GPS, just maps, music, and memories. Like old times. We were somewhere southeast of Kingman when the signs started getting sparse. The highway twisted into long, empty stretches. Just heat mirages, crumbling fences, and the occasional hawk overhead. We hadn't seen another car in over an hour. Maya dozed off, her head leaning against the window, her hair stuck to her cheek from sweat. I kept driving, one eye on the gas needle, the other on the horizon. Then came the detour. The highway ahead was closed, washed out from a recent storm, according to the orange barricade, and sun-faded notice pinned to it. No cell service, no warning. I pulled over, checked the map, spread across the dashboard. There was a smaller road, a state route that looped west, then south. It looked old, barely a line on the paper, but it would get us back to I-40 eventually. I should have turned back. But Maya stirred awake, looked at me groggily and asked, "Is everything okay?" And I smiled, kissed the back of her hand and said, "Yeah, just a little detour." We turned down that narrow road. The asphalt was cracked and half swallowed by the desert. Sagebrush clawed at the sides. The air smelled of rust and sun-baked gravel. The radio gave up a minute in, just static. Maya didn't complain. She just rolled down the window and let the hot wind tangle her hair. We drove for 30 more minutes before we saw the sign. A crooked wooden board, half buried in sand. "Welcome to Persephone." Maya read the name out loud as we passed the sign. Persephone? That's weird. She pulled the map onto her lap and started tracing the lines with her finger. "It's not here," she muttered. "I don't see a Persephone anywhere." I slowed the car. "You sure? There's nothing on this route but empty land. According to this map, we should be driving through old ranching country. Ghost towns and desert, nothing else." She looked out the window again, brows furrowed. This place wasn't supposed to be here. The road dipped and narrowed. We passed a long stretch of broken barbed wire fence, then came into view of what looked like a town, if you could call it that. A scattering of low buildings baked under the sun, their roofs warped and their paint sun-peeled. A faded water tower stood crooked against the pale blue sky. Persephone, barely legible in chipped white lettering. A single gas station sat at the edge of it all, with one rusted-out pump and a sign hanging by one chain. No movement, no cars, no sound but the crunch of tires on grit. "I don't like this," Maya said quietly. "Just need gas," I said, trying to sound calm. "Once we fill up, we'll head back to the highway." She didn't answer, but I felt her hand slide across the center console and grip mine tightly. Her palm was cold. Despite the heat, the gas station was abandoned, or seemed like it. No lights, no buzzing signs. The windows were so caked with dust, they were almost opaque. But when I stepped out, the pump looked functional. Old, yes, but intact, like someone had been keeping it just this side of ruin. I walked to the pump and tried the nozzle. It was stiff, but didn't crumble. There was a hum deep in the machine. I pulled the lever, half expecting nothing to happen. But gas started flowing. Actual gas. The meter ticked like it hadn't missed a day. That's when the bell rang. An old metal bell, like the kind tied to the top of a shop door. Maya jumped. I turned sharply toward the station. The door was open now, wide. It hadn't been open before. I thought this place was empty, Maya said, standing half out of the car, her eyes locked on the doorway. Maybe someone lives here, I said. Though it didn't sound right, even as I said it. There was no car, no sign of life, just that open door and the echo of the bell, still vibrating faintly in the dry air. I'm going to pay, I told her. Maybe they've got a map or something. I'm coming with you, she said. She slammed the car door and took my hand again. Together we stepped inside. The air inside the station was stale. It smelled of dust, old paper, and something sweeter underneath, like dried flowers that had rotted in a vase. The place was dim. A few shelves stocked with cans whose labels had long since faded, a counter with an old register, and behind the counter, a glass case of what might have once been candy, now fused into a sticky fossil of sugar and dust, and a man. He was standing behind the counter, like he'd always been there, like he hadn't just come out from some back room, but had simply appeared with the ringing of that bell. He was thin, sunburned, with deep lines in his face and eyes that didn't quite match. One brown, one pale blue, like glass. He wore a wide-brimmed hat, shadowing most of his features. Afternoon, he said, voice cracked like wind over sand. You folks passing through? I nodded slowly. Yeah, took a wrong turn. Just needed gas. We'll be on our way. He smiled, or at least tried to. No one just passes through Persephone, he said. Maya gripped my arm a little tighter. I felt the slight tremble in her fingers, and for once I didn't try to reassure her. Something about the way the man said it, like it was both a fact and a warning, dug into me. I forced a smile anyway. We're not looking to stay long, just passing through, like I said. The man's mismatched eyes didn't blink. He tilted his head slightly, like he was trying to get a better look at us. You've got time, he said. Plenty of time. Maya stepped forward. Is there a way back to I-40 from here? A paved road, preferably? He didn't answer right away. Instead, he leaned down behind the counter and came back up holding a small, dust-coated bottle of water. He set it on the counter and nodded at it. Desert's dry, you'll want this. On the house. I didn't move. Maya's voice was quieter now. Sir, we just need directions. He finally looked away from us, looked past us, out the open door to the heat shimmering on the road. Ain't no map to where you're going, he said. But I can tell you this. Don't take the road past the orchard. That's where they watch from. That's where the town ends, and something else begins. Maya and I exchanged a glance. What orchard? I asked. You'll see it, he said. Dead trees, white bark, all leaning east, like they're listening for something. Don't listen. Just keep driving. Okay, I said, backing away slowly. Thank you for the gas. He didn't answer, just stood there, watching us. The bottle of water, untouched on the counter between us. We got back in the car, without saying a word. Maya didn't take her eyes off the station, until it was behind us. I glanced in the mirror once, just before we turned a corner that cut off the view. The man was standing in the doorway, still as stone, hand raised, not waving, just raised, like a gesture half finished, like he didn't quite know how to say goodbye. The road narrowed even more as we drove farther into town. Persephone wasn't big, maybe a dozen buildings total, but they were all spaced strangely, like someone had drawn a map without understanding how towns worked. A post office with no mailbox, a diner with no sign, a schoolhouse so small it looked more like a tool shed. We didn't see a single person. The windows were dark, curtains drawn, yards overgrown or bare. There were no sounds, no animals, no wind, just the distant hum of the engine and the occasional crunch of tires on gravel. Then we saw the orchard. It stretched out along the left side of the road, maybe 100 yards wide, row after row of pale skeletal trees. Their bark was dry and white, like bone, twisted into shapes that didn't quite make sense, almost like the trees were turning to look at something that wasn't there. "They're all leaning," Maya said, under her breath. "Why are they all leaning the same way?" I didn't answer. I was too focused on something else. In the middle of the orchard, deeper in, I saw movement. It wasn't clear, more of a suggestion than anything solid. A shimmer like heat off asphalt, but darker, like something was walking between the rows. Something tall. I only saw it for a second, but Maya saw it too. She whispered, "Don't stop." I wasn't planning to. We passed the orchard in silence. I kept my eyes forward. Maya reached into the glove compartment and took out the small silver crucifix she'd kept since childhood. She didn't wear it often, but she held it in her lap now, fingers tight around the chain. After another few minutes, we passed a rusted sign bent halfway into the dirt. It simply said, "End of town limits. No more buildings beyond that. Just deserted." I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. Maya finally spoke. "That wasn't a person in the trees, was it?" I didn't answer, because I didn't know. After we passed the town limits sign, I thought things would get better. We'd leave Persephone behind, find the highway, laugh nervously about that strange little ghost town and the gas station that somehow still worked. Tell ourselves the desert heat was playing tricks on us, but the road didn't lead back to anything we recognized. It wound south, then curled west, then doubled back again. We weren't circling exactly, but it didn't feel like progress. The terrain didn't change, no signs, no forks, just miles of cracked asphalt, flanked by rocks, sand, and the occasional scorched shrub. The sun dipped lower behind us, and the shadows stretched longer than they should have. Our gas gauge had dropped below a quarter again. Maya checked her phone for the 10th time. Still no signal. Then she looked at me. "Don't get mad, but I don't think we're on the map anymore." "What do you mean?" She turned the crumpled road atlas toward me. "I've been checking every page. There is no road matching this one. Nothing south of Persephone is marked. It just stops." I glanced at the dashboard clock. We'd been driving for nearly 40 minutes since we left the orchard. We should have hit something by now. A fork, a town, a highway, even a dirt path. But there was nothing. And I realized I hadn't seen a single tire mark on the road besides ours. Maya sank back into her seat. "It's like we drove off the country." I gave a half laugh, but it was empty. Just sound to fill the growing silence. Then she asked a question I hadn't let myself consider. What if the gas station guy was right? I glanced at her. She didn't look afraid exactly. Just worn down, like her hope had frayed at the edges. "What do you mean?" I asked. She hesitated. "What if you can't just pass through Persephone?" The sun dipped beneath the horizon in one long blood-orange streak. I turned the headlights on just before the last of the daylight vanished. The temperature dropped fast. Desert nights are cruel like that. We were quiet, the kind of quiet that has weight, that feels like it's holding its breath. Then, up ahead, something appeared on the road, a shape, human. I slowed the car, heart thudding. Maya sat up straighter, squinting. It was a woman, standing on the shoulder, dressed in something white that fluttered slightly in the breeze. She wasn't waving. She wasn't moving. Just watching us approach. "Do we stop?" I asked. Maya didn't answer. We were still rolling forward slowly. I could see her more clearly now. Long black hair, bare feet covered in dust, a pale dress that looked sun-bleached and torn at the edges. I rolled down the window halfway. "Ma'am, are you all right?" She didn't answer. Her face was turned slightly away. Then suddenly, she raised her hand. Not in greeting, not in warning. She pointed behind us. "What the hell?" Maya whispered. I looked in the rearview mirror. At first there was nothing, just the road stretching back into shadow. Then I saw it, a figure, far in the distance, just where the headlights cut off. Tall, still, and walking toward us. I pressed the gas. The tires spun for half a second on loose gravel before catching. The woman on the side of the road didn't react as we passed. She just stood there, arm still outstretched, finger aimed behind us, like she was warning us of something that was following. We didn't speak for several minutes after we passed the woman. My hands gripped the wheel so tight, my knuckles went pale. Maya kept glancing out the back window, like she was expecting to see that figure gaining on us. But the road remained dark behind us. No headlights, no sound but the tires on worn pavement. Nothing. Still, I could feel it. That pressure, that prickling sensation at the back of my neck. Like we were being watched. Like something had hitched a ride just outside the reach of the headlights. Maya whispered, "She wasn't real." "What?" "The woman. She didn't blink. She didn't flinch when the car passed. She didn't even look at us." I didn't know what to say. She was right. The woman had just existed, like a landmark, like a scarecrow. Suddenly, the dashboard lights dimmed. Then, the engine gave a short, wheezing sputter. The car jerked forward once, like it was gasping for momentum. "No, no, no," I hissed. I looked at the gas gauge. It still read just above empty, but it hadn't dropped since we left the station. Maya leaned forward. "We filled up an hour ago." "I know." I pulled off to the side of the road as gently as I could before the engine coughed one last time and died. We sat there staring ahead, engine silent, desert night closing in around us. Then, the lights behind us flickered. Not the car lights, something else, something far down the road. A glow, soft, golden, pulsing. Maya reached for my arm. "Do you see that?" "I see it." We rolled the windows up and locked the doors. I don't know why. It felt like something we were supposed to do, like some primal instinct to seal ourselves off from the night. The light grew brighter, still distant, but stronger. Not headlights, not a lantern. It flickered too much, too warm, like fire. I turned the key again. Click, click. Nothing. The headlights remained dead. The radio too. Just a dim green glow and the hum of static. Then, just as I reached to turn it off, I heard something beneath the static. A voice. "Don't stay." It was faint, crushed under the white noise, but it was there. I turned the dial, thinking maybe we'd picked up a signal after all. But the noise just deepened. The voice sharpened. "Not safe. Keep moving." Maya was staring at the radio now too, her breath shallow. "What is it saying?" she asked. I turned the volume up slightly, careful not to drown out the whispers. Behind you? I snapped the dial off. We sat in silence, every nerve stretched taut. Then something tapped the back windshield. Once, then again, just a soft, deliberate touch, like fingertips brushing glass. Maya gasped and spun around. There was nothing there. I turned around too, slowly, heart hammering. Still nothing. But the third tap came louder, closer, right next to Maya's head. She screamed. I fumbled with the keys, jamming them back in, begging the car to start. And then, without warning, the engine roared to life. The lights snapped on. There was no one behind us. But on the side of the road, maybe 20 yards back, the woman in white was standing again, closer now, turned toward us this time. And just behind her, that tall, walking figure stood, still as a monolith, with something in its hands that looked too long to be arms. We drove. We didn't look back again. We drove fast, faster than the cracked road allowed, the wheels juddering and bouncing with every pothole, every uneven patch of old tar. But I didn't care. We needed distance, space between us and whatever was standing out there in the dark. After 10 minutes, Maya finally spoke, her voice hoarse and quiet. That wasn't human. No. You saw it too. Its arms. I saw it. She didn't say anything else. Neither did I. The road straightened and began sloping downward, like we were descending into a dry riverbed or valley. The sky above had gone black, the stars dim behind a gauzy layer of desert haze. That's when we noticed the moon. It was huge, too big, hanging low on the horizon like a balloon about to burst. But it was the color that stopped us cold. Not white, not silver. It was dark red, almost purple. A sickly bruise of a moon, like something diseased. I slowed the car to a crawl. That's not right, Maya said. I know. She pulled her phone out again, but the screen flickered and went black. Not just no signal, dead. She tried mine. Same result. The screen wouldn't even light up. We kept driving under that wrong moon. The light it cast on the road wasn't soft or natural. It shimmered, oily and distorted, like we were underwater. The air felt thick, like breathing through gauze. The car began to struggle again. Not the engine. Something else. The weight of the road felt different, like the ground was pulling us downward, resisting our wheels. Stop, Maya said suddenly. What? She pointed. Do you see that? Ahead of us, in the middle of the road, something lay sprawled across the asphalt. At first, I thought it was a bag, or maybe a bundle of clothing. Then, it moved. I slammed the brakes, the tires squealing. The car jerked to a stop, about 20 feet from it. Whatever it was, it had limbs. Pale, thin. It rolled over slowly, like it had been sleeping. And then it started to stand, but the way it stood, jerky, too fluid in places and too stiff in others. It wasn't right. It reminded me of how insects move when they've been stunned. Legs bending the wrong way, movements out of sync. Maya whispered, "Is that a person?" It had a human shape. That much was true, but its proportions were all wrong. Its arms reached too far down. Its spine curved backward, arching in a strange S, and its face, number. It didn't have a face, just smooth skin where eyes, nose, and mouth should have been, like a blank mask stretched too tight over a skull. I hit the gas again. The thing turned toward us, not with its head, but with its entire body, swiveling like it didn't understand how motion was supposed to work. As we passed, it reached out. Its fingers grazed the side mirror with a screeching sound. Metal on bone. Maya was crying now softly, her hand clamped over her mouth. The thing didn't follow. It just stood there in the mirror, motionless, like a statue left in the road. But as we rounded another bend, We saw something else up ahead, a sign, the first in hours. Welcome to Persephone. We had driven in a full circle. Maya stared at the sign, then at me, then back at the sign again. Number, number, number. We didn't turn around. We didn't. But that's the same sign, the same bullet holes, the same paint peeling at the corner. She was practically hyperventilating. We never turned around, Jack. I pulled over, not because I wanted to, but because my hands were shaking so badly. I was afraid I'd drive us off the road. I turned the engine off, and for a moment, we sat there in silence, breathing in the dead air. I kept us going straight, I said quietly. No forks, no intersections, no way to get turned around. Maya looked down at her lap. She was clutching her crucifix again, the chain so tight in her hand. It left red impressions on her skin. There's something wrong with this place. I nodded slowly. We passed the town limit sign. We left. No, Jack. We thought we left. It let us think we did. I didn't want to believe it. But she was right. We were trapped. Or worse, we were being led. We drove back into Persephone slowly, cautiously, as if the buildings might move if we startled them. Everything was the same. Same crooked diner, same sagging water tower, same schoolhouse too small to teach a single child. But now it felt different. The lights were on, not all of them, but enough to notice. A faint glow in the upstairs window of what looked like a motel. A flickering bulb above the diner door. A radio crackling from somewhere behind the closed blinds of a window. We hadn't seen any of this earlier. It was like the town had woken up and was pretending to be alive. I slowed the car outside the gas station. The door was closed this time. No bell, no man behind the counter. But the bottle of water was still there on the front step. Untouched, Maya spoke without looking at me. We can't stay here. We don't have gas. I don't care. We can't walk out into the desert. Not at night. She didn't respond, but I saw it in her face. The calculation, the sheer animal panic fighting with logic. Reason losing ground. I rubbed my temples. My skin felt hot, too tight around my face. Something moved across the second floor window of the motel. Just a shadow. A person. I looked directly at it. There was no one there. I turned to Maya. We should sleep in the car, I said. Lock the doors, just till morning. She didn't argue. I parked in front of the old post office, where the car was half hidden by a dead tree. We reclined our seats, locked everything, tried not to speak. As I drifted off, I could have sworn I heard whispering from the motel window across the street, low and rhythmic, like someone was chanting. I didn't sleep long. A sharp knock on the windshield startled me awake. 3 quick raps like knuckles on glass. I sat up, heart hammering, hands fumbling for the door lock, even though it was already down. But there was no one there. The street was empty. The windows across the road dark again. Maya was still asleep in the passenger seat, curled on her side, breathing shallow and quick. I checked my watch. 2:13 a.m. The car clock blinked the same time, then blinked again, then froze. I looked up at the sky. The moon, still wrong, still that sickly purplish red, hung in the same spot it had hours ago, like time wasn't passing or it was stuck. I leaned back and closed my eyes for just a second, and then the whispering started again. It came from the motel window across the street, soft at first, like dry leaves caught in wind. Then words began to take shape. Not English, not anything I recognized, but it sounded rhythmic, like a prayer, or a summoning. I looked across the street again. This time, there was someone in the window, a figure standing behind the curtains, face obscured, hands pressed to the glass, like they were leaning in, waiting to be let out. Maya stirred next to me. "Jack?" I turned to her quickly. She blinked at me, then looked out the window. "What time is it?" "Still 2:13. She didn't question it. I think she already knew. "The whispers are back," I told her. Her lips tightened. "Where?" "Motel window." She sat up, eyes scanning the glass. But the figure was gone again. I unlocked the door. "Jack, what are you doing?" "I just need to see what's inside." "No," she said, panic rising in her voice. "Don't go in there." "I won't," I lied. "Just the front steps." The town was dead quiet as I stepped out. The air was heavy, like something holding its breath. Each of my footsteps on the cracked pavement sounded like thunder in the stillness. I approached the motel. The building was sagging slightly, as though exhausted. The sign above the door was long gone, but the letters E and L still clung to their rusted bolts. I stepped onto the porch. The boards creaked under my weight, and then I saw it, etched into the wood. Just in front of the door was a circle, burned into the planks, blackened and charred, almost perfectly round. Inside the circle were symbols, scratch-like, worn down by time, but still visible and familiar, though I couldn't say how, like something ancient that my bones remembered, even if my mind didn't. Maya's voice rang out behind me. "Jack, come back, now." I looked up. The door was open. It hadn't been a moment ago. The whispers were louder now. They were inviting, and somewhere in the back of my mind, something in me wanted to go in. I don't remember crossing the threshold. 1 second, I was on the porch, staring at that scorched circle. The next, I was inside the motel. The air was thick, warmer than outside, and smelled like mold, candle wax, and rust. The floor beneath me creaked softly with each step, though I don't remember choosing to move. Everything inside looked preserved, like it had been frozen in the moment the town died. The wallpaper was peeling but unbroken. A faded painting of a desert sunset hung crooked on the wall. The keys still sat behind the counter, each one with a number tag hanging from a bent hook. But there was no dust, no cobwebs, no insects. Like the place wasn't abandoned. It was just waiting. The whispering was louder in here. It came from the upstairs hallway, where the floor dipped and the shadows thickened. "Jack." Maya's voice broke through it all, sharp and clear, like cold water to the face. I turned and saw her standing in the open door, fear carved into every line of her face. "You were just standing there," she said, "not moving, not blinking." "I didn't." She grabbed my hand. "We're leaving. Right now." And for the first time since entering that town, the whispers stopped, all at once, like they'd been watching me, like they'd been interrupted. Back in the car, I started the engine. Thankfully, it didn't resist this time. Maya stared at me for a long while before speaking. "I think they're trying to keep you." "They?" She nodded. "This place, the voices, the circle on the porch, whatever was behind that window." We passed the gas station again. Still empty, still silent. I reached into the glove box and pulled out the map again. I don't know why, I wasn't expecting it to help. But what I saw made me freeze. The ink was different, where the open desert had been printed. Just blank sand and borderless terrain. There was now something else. A rough, hand-drawn road. A small black dot labeled Persephone in thin red ink. That dot hadn't been there before. I would have bet my life on it. Maya saw it too. She touched the paper. Someone added this. But who? She looked at me. Or what? As we drove away from the center of town again, I noticed something new. Telephone poles running along the road. We hadn't seen them before. And every so often, strung high between the poles, were charms, bundles of feathers, hair, bone, tied together with red string and nailed into the wood like warnings or offerings. That was when I realized something else. The moon was still in the exact same spot, unmoving, watching. Time wasn't passing here. We weren't just lost, we were held. We followed the new road, the one that shouldn't have existed, the one now drawn onto our map in red ink. Every few minutes, I'd check the rearview mirror. The town never seemed to vanish from view. No matter how far we drove, Persephone sat there at the edge of the world, frozen, silent, unmoving. And the moon still hung in the same place. We followed the telephone poles for maybe 15 minutes when we saw the shack. It was tucked just off the road, half swallowed by a sand dune and ringed by desert shrubs, so dry they crumbled at the edges. The building looked like it had been cobbled together out of sheet metal, driftwood, and scraps of roofing tar. But smoke curled from the chimney. "Do we stop?" I asked. Maya didn't speak for a long moment. Then, "If someone's alive out here, they might know how to leave." The shack door opened before we even reached it. An old woman stepped out. She was tall, rail-thin, draped in layers of linen and beads made from polished stones, and, God help me, teeth. Her skin was leathery, wind-burnt. Her eyes were two pale stones, clouded but alert. "You shouldn't be here," she said. Her voice was dry as the air around us. "We didn't mean to," I replied. "We took a wrong turn. Number you were brought." She stepped aside and gestured into the shack. "Come in, before the moon watches too long." Inside it was hot, claustrophobic. The walls were lined with bones, coyote, deer, maybe human, and bundles of herbs hung drying from the ceiling. A fire pit smoldered in the center. The woman sat cross-legged on a rug that looked centuries old. Maya and I stood near the door, afraid to touch anything. "You're not the first," she said. I swallowed. "Others have come here?" She nodded. "Always in pairs, always in love, always on the brink of loss." Maya stepped forward. "What is this place?" "A tear," the woman said simply. "A seam between what was and what never should have been." We didn't respond. She picked up a small wooden bowl and stirred the ash inside with a stick. This land, Persephone, wasn't a town. It was a ward, a sealing place, meant to bury something too old to name. Maya asked, "Something like a spirit?" "No," she said. "Older than spirits, older than God." The town was built by those who understood what slept beneath. They lived simple lives, followed rituals, burned the right things, spoke no names after dark. They kept it dreaming. "And now?" I asked. She looked up at me, and for the first time, her expression cracked. "They forgot, or died, or left. And the thing beneath, it's waking up, hungry, curious. You came at the edge of its stirring. You were chosen because you're fractured. Cracked hearts leak more easily." I looked at Maya. She looked back at me. "We're not fractured," I said. "But it came out thin." The woman shook her head. "You don't have much time." "Time doesn't work here," Maya whispered. "The moon hasn't moved in hours." "Because you're inside the eye now," the woman said. "It sees you, and when it finishes seeing, it feeds." Then she handed me a small cloth-wrapped bundle. "Salt, bone, sage. Walk backward when you reach the crossroads. Do not look back, even if it calls your name." "What happens if we do?" Maya asked. The woman's eyes went distant. "You won't be people anymore." We left the shack with the bundle clutched tightly in my hand. Salt, bone, sage. It felt wrong to hold. Too warm, like it had a heartbeat, like it knew what it was meant for. The old woman didn't follow us out. She just stood in the doorway watching, until we turned the bend. and she vanished behind a rise in the earth. Neither of us spoke. The telephone poles resumed after a few minutes, withered and bent. More of those bone charms rattling in the desert wind. And up ahead, the land began to shift. The road forked. At first, I thought it was a trick of the light, but as we got closer, the split in the road became clear. A perfect Y branching left and right. No signs, no arrows, no guidance. But something was buried at the center of the fork. A post, blackened by fire, charred nearly to ash, and nailed to it was a skull. Coyote, I think. But stretched, elongated, the snout sharper than nature intended. Its teeth were human. We pulled to a stop. "This is it," I said. Maya stared at the split, her breath fogging the glass. "Which way do we go?" "Neither," I said. "We walk. Backward." She looked at me like I'd gone mad. "I'm serious," I said. She told us, "When we reach the crossroads, we walk backward. With the bundle. No turning. No speaking. What if it follows?" I looked down at the small cloth bundle in my lap. The sage inside was starting to smolder. Faint tendrils of gray smoke curling up like spider legs. "We don't stop." We got out of the car, locked it, said nothing. The wind was rising now, dry and bitter. It carried whispers, not voices, but syllables, broken words, like someone trying to form language out of breath. I took Maya's hand. She held tight. We turned around, facing the car, and began walking backward down the middle of the fork. Our steps were slow, clumsy at first, and the road under our feet felt strange in reverse, like it had texture only when you weren't looking. With each step, the air got colder, the wind grew louder, the whispers sharpened. Behind us, I knew the fork was changing. I could feel it bending, stretching into a spiral. But we didn't look. We didn't dare. And then I heard it. My name. Jack. A woman's voice, soft. Familiar. Too familiar. It sounded exactly like Maya. But she was gripping my hand, right beside me, silent. "Jack," the voice said again, sweeter now. "You're going the wrong way." Maya began to cry silently, still walking. Her hand trembled in mine. "Don't listen," I whispered. "Just walk." Then the voice changed. It dropped into something deeper, wetter, like it was speaking from a mouthful of earth and roots. It said one word: "Stop." We didn't. The sage in the bundle caught flame, real fire, licking out from between the folds of cloth. It didn't burn our hands, but it burned something around us. The whispers turned to screams. We walked faster. The ground shook beneath us, and then we passed the fork, back onto the road. The temperature snapped upward. The fire died in the cloth. The wind stopped like someone had slammed a door, and the moon was gone. We stood in the center of the road, staring up at the sky. No moon, no stars, just an expanse of pitch above us, blacker than anything I'd ever seen. It wasn't like night. It was like looking into a well with no bottom, a place where light had never lived. The wind was gone. The whispers, too. Even the air felt different now, thinner, cleaner, more real somehow. And as we turned around, we saw it. The fork was gone. The road behind us stretched on, straight and narrow, framed by low desert hills. No signs, no burned post, no skull. The bundle in my hand was cold now. The cloth singed black at the corners, but no longer burning. Maya collapsed into me, breathing hard, sobbing quietly into my shoulder. "We're out," she whispered. "Tell me we're out." "I think so," I said. But even as I said it, I felt something in the pit of my stomach, a heaviness that hadn't gone away. Like we'd passed through something, but not completely. Like part of it had passed through us. We walked back to the car in silence. But as we reached it, something was off. The windows were fogged from the inside. A thick condensation coated the glass. trickling in streaks like breath or tears. And there was writing. One word, smeared into the windshield with a finger. Stay. Maya pulled back. No. I reached into the car slowly, wiping the word away with my sleeve. The keys were still in the ignition. I turned them. The engine groaned once, then started. I waited, half expecting the dashboard to flicker or the headlights to show something terrible in the rear view. But nothing happened. No more whispers, no wrong moon, just the desert, normal again, or trying to be. We drove. No GPS, no phone signal, but we kept going west, hoping to run into a highway. Something, anything. But after an hour of driving, the road ended, just stopped. The asphalt crumbled into sand, as if it had never existed past that point. I stepped out and walked a few feet forward, into the desert. Maya called after me, her voice tight with fear, and that's when I saw it. Tire tracks, old, faded, but unmistakably ours, curving slowly back toward the direction we'd just come. A perfect circle. I crouched down in the sand, fingers brushing the tire tracks. They weren't deep, but they were wide. Ours, no question. The same tread from our front left tire. I'd recognized the uneven wear since Flagstaff. We'd been here before. Or worse, we'd never left. Maya stood just behind me, barefoot now, holding her shoes in one hand. It's a loop, she said. Not a question, just fact. Like it's folding us back into it. I stood slowly, looking out at the empty horizon. We walked backward, burned the sage, followed her instructions. That should have broken the circle. Maya shook her head. She said, not to look back, even if it called our name. She met my eyes. Jack, you glanced. I didn't even remember doing it, a split second, a reflex. But it was enough. Something had seen me, and now it knew I'd looked. I turned toward the horizon again. The sun was starting to rise, but instead of warmth, the light carried a cold, sharp clarity. Everything looked too real, the shadows too long, the sky too pale, like the world was mimicking itself, just slightly off. Let's drive, I said. As far as we can. We keep going until something breaks. And so we did. We drove until the sun was overhead. No change, just more dust, more road. And then, unexpectedly, we saw a sign, a real one. Aluminum, reflective, newer than anything else we'd seen since this started. It read, Interstate 40, 3 miles. Maya gasped. Her hand flew to her mouth, like she was afraid to speak it out loud. We're close. I stared at the sign for a long moment. The angle was wrong. The lettering too clean, too perfect, like it had just been planted. And then I saw it, just beneath the bottom edge, where the metal met the dirt. Red string, a single strand, tied in a small knot, hanging like a root just beneath the surface. Maya didn't see it. She was already leaning forward in her seat, craning to see if the road bent toward civilization. We're not out, I said softly. She looked at me. What? I pointed. Look. She followed my gaze, down to the string. She froze. The same red thread we'd seen on the bone charms. The same red thread the old woman wore in her hair. The same thread that tied every horrible thing in this place together. It wants us to believe we're close, I said. It's bait. Maya looked around slowly. Then her eyes went wide. What? She pointed behind us. The Persephone sign was back, but this time it stood in front of the road, as if we'd never left, as if we'd been driving in place the entire time. The heat was unbearable now. Not the kind of heat you expect in the desert. This was different, intentional, like something pressing down on us from above, waiting for us to snap. Maya slumped forward in her seat, shoulders trembling. She wasn't crying. Not anymore. She was beyond it. "What does it want from us?" she whispered. I didn't answer, because I didn't know. I looked at the Persephone sign again. It hadn't changed. Same cracked wood, same peeling white paint. But this time, it stood in the middle of the road, not beside it, like a checkpoint, like a door. I stepped out of the car. The desert stretched endlessly around us, flat, empty, dead. No sound, no birds, no wind, no world. It felt like we were trapped inside something dreaming of being a place. I walked slowly toward the sign. Maya stayed behind me, arms wrapped tightly around her chest. And then the sky changed. I don't know how else to describe it. It didn't darken. It didn't storm. It shifted, like a canvas sliding slightly off its frame. The colors grew more muted, the shadows too long for midday. And somewhere in that stretching silence, I heard it again. "Jack." The same voice, Maya's voice, but not from her. Behind me, calling softly. "Don't turn around," the real Maya whispered. Her voice trembled, but the pull was stronger now, like a hook behind my eyes. It wanted me to look, to see it. We turned back toward the car. It was gone. I blinked once, twice. Nothing but bare desert where it had been. Maya gasped and stumbled backward. "It's resetting," she said again. "It's restarting everything." The road was gone too, just sand stretching endlessly in every direction. The Persephone sign was still there, alone now, no longer standing in a road, but stuck deep into cracked earth, and something else had appeared behind it, a mirror, tall, thin, like an antique from an old house, warped slightly at the edges. It stood upright in the middle of nowhere, completely unsupported. I don't know how long we stared at it, but I know the moment I realized something was wrong. The mirror reflected the desert, but not us. Maya stepped forward, her hand trembling. "There's something in it," she whispered. And there was. 2 people, United States, standing in front of the mirror, but frozen, still. And in the reflection, Maya turned to me and smiled. But the real Maya was staring at it with wide, terrified eyes. "That's not me," she whispered. "No," I said. Then, in the mirror, my reflection leaned forward. It raised its hand and waved. We backed away from the mirror. But our reflections didn't. They stayed still a moment longer, then began to follow. They stepped forward in perfect unison, toward the inside of the mirror. But there was no glass, no barrier. It was like they were moving through water, their outlines warping as they passed through the surface. Maya grabbed my arm. They're crossing over. I couldn't move. My reflection, him, the thing pretending to be me, was looking directly into my eyes. He had my face, my scars, even the small nick on my chin from when I'd fallen off my bike as a kid. But there was no recognition in his eyes, only hunger. Not the kind you feel in your gut, but the kind that exists in voids. That ancient, bottomless yearning to replace. Behind me, the sky was deepening again, shifting back toward that blood-hued twilight. The air buzzed faintly, like a storm was gathering from beneath the ground, instead of the sky. The other Maya smiled, not kindly. Her teeth were just a little too sharp. I reached into my jacket and pulled out what was left of the sage bundle. The cloth was torn, the ashes scattered in my pocket, but the bone charm was still intact. I held it up, hand shaking. The reflections paused, just for a moment, like they remembered something. Maya stepped beside me, her own hands curled into fists. "What do we do?" "Make a choice," I said. "Stay or burn this thing down." She didn't hesitate. "We burn it." I dropped the charm to the ground and lit it with the last match from the old woman's bundle. The moment the flame touched the sage and bone, the desert screamed. The sound came from everywhere, From the ground, the sky, the mirror, even from inside our own heads. Not pain, not rage. It was a wail of recognition, like something old and buried had been found again. The mirror cracked, first down the center, then outward, in jagged lines. Our reflections began to convulse, limbs jerking, faces distorting, like the form they wore was peeling away. The wind exploded outward from the flame, whirling ash and sand in every direction. Maya screamed. I shielded her with my body, and then the mirror shattered, with a sound like a cathedral collapsing into dust, and the world went white. When the light faded, we were on the road again, the real road. I knew it immediately, not because it looked different, but because it felt different. The air had weight again. The colors were right. The shadows fell naturally. The world wasn't dreaming anymore. The mirror was gone. So was the Persephone sign, the red string, the charms, the voice that wore Maya's skin, gone. And for the first time in what felt like days, there was a sky full of stars above us. Cold, distant, indifferent, but real. I turned slowly, half expecting the desert to rearrange itself again, to split open and reveal some yawning mouth, some final punishment for escaping. But there was only the night, and Maya, and the sound of her breath in the silence. We walked. For how long, I don't know. An hour, maybe 2. Then we saw headlights in the distance. A real car. It stopped for us, a couple in their 60s, headed west from Albuquerque. They thought we'd broken down. We didn't explain. We just got in the back seat, holding hands, too tired to speak. We didn't even ask where they were going. Anywhere was better than back. We made it to a hospital the next morning. They ran tests, kept us for observation, told us we were severely dehydrated, sun-addled, disoriented from exposure. They thought we'd gotten lost on a side trail, wandered off, collapsed, hallucinated. We let them think that. We let everyone think that. We checked into a hotel near the airport that night, slept in a real bed, with pillows and sheets and walls that didn't breathe. Maya turned to me in the dark. You looked, she said softly. I know. I think it saw you. I didn't respond, because I'd been thinking about the same thing, about how even now, with all of it behind us, I sometimes saw myself in the mirror, hesitate to use just a moment too long, like he's waiting to see what I do, so he can mimic it, like the line between me and the other me, never fully healed. And sometimes, when Maya sleeps, she talks, only once, have I leaned in close enough to hear what she says. And it wasn't my name. It was the name of the town, Persephone.